Thank you. Hello and welcome to the Cisco support community. Today we present a live Cisco support community expert series webcast event. During our event today, our topic will be Cisco Nexus 5000, 6000, and Fiber Channel over Ethernet, important caveats and best practices. My name is Francine Richards, and I am a web project manager for the Cisco support community. Our expert joining me today is Vinayak Sudame, a technical marketing engineer in Cisco's data center group specializing in security and data center technologies. He's a CCIE in routing and switching. So welcome, Vinayak. Joining Vinayak is Carlos Lopez, a technical leader, also with the data center group. And Carlos was formerly with TACSAN and has experience with UCS, MDS, and Nexus products, and is an expert in the area of fiber channel and FCOE. He's CCIE in storage area networking. He's also joined by Carlo Schmidt. Carlos has been a TAC engineer in the storage area network team focusing on troubleshooting FCOE. And previously, Carlo was an engineer in the data center switching team working on all Nexus platforms, Ethernet issues since 2011. Now, I'd like to briefly outline the format for today's Expert Series event. Vinayak will start with his presentation for the first 60 minutes of the program, and then we will dive into the live question submissions for the remainder of the event. During our live presentation, you may submit questions to be answered by Vinayak and the team of Cisco technical experts using the Q&A box on the right side of the console. The team of technical experts is well-versed in Cisco Nexus and FCOE, so please begin posting your questions now to give them the best chance of answering them. And if you experience any technical issues, please post your questions in the chat. We'll be asking polling questions during this webcast, and we highly encourage you to participate by answering them. You may also download today's presentation using the link in the chat window. And now we're going to get started with today's event. We'll start with a polling question for the audience. How frequently do you contact TAC? A, I work with TAC on a regular basis. B, I sometimes contact TAC. C, I rarely contact TAC, and D, I have never worked with TAC. So please take a moment to answer that, and that'll give Vinayak an opportunity to tailor his presentation to your needs. I want you to make sure to submit your questions, as we will answer them a little bit later in the webcast. And now I would like to hand the mic over to Vinayak, who will give you an overview of Cisco Nexus and FCOE, important caveats, and best practices.
Hello, everybody. This session, we are specifically catered, with respect to our data center Nexus 5K, 6K switches. 6K is kind of a next-gen 5K, you can say. So today we are actually going to go over, so we actually work here in the technical support organization, myself, Carlos, and Carlo. So we work a lot of issues on these particular platforms. So we thought, what more of an opportunity to actually present this to the forum members, right? So today we are actually going to go over. So this is our agenda. We will actually just go over, like few minutes. We'll spend time on, how actually we function. What typically we require our customers to do. When they open a TAC case, and what all information is needed, and before, so that way it gives us a head start, with troubleshooting. After that, we'll go over, all the Nexus kind of caveats, some of the issues we have seen in the field, anything major, software-wise, product-wise, which our members need to know. So kind of, you might have seen something in the field or something to be aware of, right? So we will go over that. Also, we do support FCOE on our older, 5K, the newer 5500 Carmel-based switches, and the newer 6Ks, right? So definitely we'll go over some FCOE, important caveats as well. And after that, before we end the session, we'll go over the best practices. So best practices, they include, layer 2 and layer 3 specific, VPC specific, and then FCOE specific best practices. And then obviously we'll have the Q&A. So, specifically, show tech support details, coming from iOS switches, especially Nexus show tech support details are kind of extensive. However, I would like to say, compared to our other Nexus platforms like the 7K, the tech supports are not as huge, on the 5K, 6K. And always when you get a show tech support detail, show tech support, get a show tech support details, right? So details always has more information which you can actually collect. So typically when you collect these, you can either redirect them to the boot flash and actually upload the file. With the recent changes on Cisco.com, now you can upload bigger files as well. So obviously when you have like a putty session or you're using secure CRT, right? You have provision to actually log the session. So any which way you can actually collect the data. It's extremely beneficial for us. It gives us a lot of ground start when we start looking at the problem. Sometimes if accurate information is not provided, it helps us look at the configurations, what all hardware is there on the switch, and all the other things, right? So show tech support details is something which we definitely encourage customers to, provide to us. So again, when you look at show tech support details, you have different kinds of options. So, this slide is more from the point of, once we get the data, after that, based on what kind of a problem it is, we might have a component level tech supports, which are kind of specific. So the show tech support details might not have that info, right? So in which case we might request it, from our end users and customers. So data center network manager, right? So DCNM, it's kind of a next gen fabric manager. So if some of you have worked on the MDS line of switches, we have been supporting fabric manager for a long time. So as we came out with our Nexus environment, we also built in the support for a web-based GUI front end, which is your DCNM. So obviously you can use DCNM to control your Nexus switches, including your 7Ks, 5Ks, your fabric extenders, right? So obviously you can get some data from DCNM as well. Typically when files are uploaded, we like to have more clear naming convention, so that way, sometimes we have cases which could be 2-3 months long based on the nature of troubleshooting, based on, how we are able to diagnose those problems. And if, we keep sending more data on the case, we want to make sure the files are pretty clear, with respect to the naming nomenclature, right? So that's something, file naming is also pretty critical. When we look at data center environments, it's always end to end, right? So you got switches, you got servers, you got storage. So, we do provide, I wouldn't say limited or extended, but I would say we do provide support to a point where, collaboration is involved with third-party vendors, right? So, it's always nice to have the customers also kind of collaborate with us to get equal vendor involvement on problems, right? So obviously that way we leverage, if it is not a Cisco problem, then obviously, since we are in the middle, we are tasked to actually resolve the problem or at least drive that problem. So, we definitely work with our third-party vendors. We do encourage collaborative effort from the customer side as well. So we have web resources available, especially go to the forums, server networking, storage networking, we have, members who contribute to it. We also monitor it as well. Now there is a provision to open a tag case when you're actually having some discussion on the forum, and obviously if further assistance is needed, we have the provision inbuilt now where you can actually open a tag case from that. So the bug toolkit is also more enhanced now. Our Cisco.com team has been extremely, fabulous, and they have put in a lot of efforts to get the new bug tool, out for our customers. It's very granular. It provides a lot more information compared to the older tool which we had, right? So definitely something where if TAC actually finds a problem, then all the external facing information for that bug, you can check on the bug toolkit. So again, I don't want to spend much time on TAC do's and don'ts, but in the sense, this is more internal. What is external is RMA request, especially allowing time for the TAC to actually, put in that much time, right? So it's a 4-hour RMA or a next business day, when it is initiated, getting the entitlement approval, making sure the parts are in the depot, right? All that stuff. So especially, when the case is new, it is fine if, the engineer is not available and the case is requeued. But, when problems are getting resolved, if the case is with a particular TAC case owner for a longer time, right, then obviously, we can still, get it requeued and hand it off based on the, nature of the, seriousness of the situation, right? So obviously, but it kind of impacts the handoff, especially you got a new engineer come in and start looking at the data, right? So. With this, we'll start discussing some of the important, caveats, what we have seen on our Nexus 5000, 6000 platforms. I would definitely like to say that 6K, obviously it's been some time in the field for that. So from a, caveat perspective, obviously, there are some limited caveats which we have seen, not as much as the 5K, because 5K has been in the field much longer as well, and we have gone through several iterations of the releases and all that, right? And obviously put in more features into those releases. So this is another polling question we have. If you have Nexus 2000, 5000, or 6000, do you have that in your data center? So this is another polling question. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about some of the silent reloads. Typically, silent reload is something where the switch kind of goes down and comes back up. There is no core file information. There is not much info to begin with. Analyzing your onboard logs, there is not a whole lot of info. When you look at the show system reset reason or show version, you see the reset reason as unknown, right? So you don't know why it typically went down. A most common reason for that is if the switch loses power, like if there is basically a power strip, and so the most common reason is that there could be some power problem, right? However, if you have done all the groundwork and if you believe that this is not a power problem, then you definitely want to call TAC, right, to actually investigate the problem. So we have seen an issue with a few customers out there where the switch kind of goes down and comes back up. Obviously, there is no genuine power problem. The power distribution is fine. So what there is a specific way where we actually look at the I2C code. That's your inherent power sequencer cause code. Especially what it determines is based on the value what we get in that I2C code. We can make a determination whether it's a genuine power problem, right? So from a customer point of view, it could still be a power problem, but obviously they don't know, right? So there could be a power surge if we go about 250 volt, right, on the 5K, or these switches have particular power thresholds, so we might still have like a minuscule, probably like a power fluctuation, right, which might not be tracked or which might not be noticed. So what we have done is, so we have actually root caused this problem, and we have actually come out with the newer power sequencer, which is inbuilt in a newer code 513N21. What it does is, if you're running a switch with the older code and you're seeing multiple resets, we do encourage you to upgrade the code beyond 513N21. Once the code is upgraded, you have to power cycle the switch for the power sequencer to take effect. Now, this power sequencer specific issue we have seen with the 5596 switches. Now, for the 5548 switches also, we are tracking silent reloads. The I2C code for that is different. The power sequencer version is also different. But obviously, for those issues, we are still, actively working it. One issue what we have seen is, if there is a power supply failure, so we have redundancy, right? So we have a couple of power supplies, and one power supply fails. And this is on the 5596, right? So if one power supply fails, then obviously the switch should be running on another power supply. So what we have seen in the field is, there could be an issue where one power supply fails and the switch goes down. So that should not happen, right? So if you see something like that, definitely do give us a call. We have included some of the caveats here. You have to call TAC, and you have to actually have us load a deplug and actually find the I2C cause code, and based on the codes, we can actually determine, what kind of a bug it is, right? So that's with that issue. Now we have seen, some alarm messages being generated on the transceivers, on the SFPs. Typically, these are fiber SFPs, right? Especially 10 gig SRs. So, again, when the switch is running a particular code, we have enabled some logging to make sure if there is a genuine failure, then then that information is logged in your logging log. Now what happens, right? Because of that, now we started generating error messages, and which are more like false positives. So, we started having customers call in, and, we have identified, we have root caused this issue. So this is the bug CSC UG84290. We can mask those messages by changing the logging level for the transceivers to be lower, right? So this is actually fixed in one of our recent release, 521N15. So now typically, this is all NXOS, right? So you have different kinds of threads going on, all kernel based. Again, what we have seen is, based on the uptime of the switch, when you do a show system internal flash on the 5K, you actually see all the directories. So typically what happens is, there could be a possibility where the switch could be crashing in a particular component, or there could be, some files which are not getting deleted or things like that, and the file space in particular directories keep growing. So one of issues like this is, your var sys manager work. So that is a particular directory, it kind of keeps getting filled. And so if you are trying to upgrade the switch, or, you're trying to do, especially, you might see some weird problems with TACAX or radius. Those particular core files keep getting generated, and then you have specific, space in those directories. And once they keep getting full, you can have problems with, especially you will now in the new code we log a message as well for TACAX and radius daemon. So if you have TACX running, you know, so the workaround, obviously, you have TACX running, so you can't really disable that, but there is a provision to have local authentication in the meantime. And if you contact TAC, we can try to give you like a custom script where you can regularly clean out the directories until you upgrade to the new release, right? So that's basically this issue is kind of seen on the 7K as well. So it's kind of a issue which has got a lot of our attention. So the next one, again, now 5K acting as an NTP client. So suppose you have an NTP server, right, out there on the network, and we are trying to sync with it. We have seen cases where, your NTP is not able to sync. So if you look at show NTP peer status, it doesn't show anything. We don't see any send receive counters, right? So obviously, it's a software problem, right? So we are tracking it with this particular bug ID CSCUI 34757. There is a way where you can actually, the clock protocol, you can change the configuration for it, and you can save that config and, make sure, you have a workaround that way. But the thing is, it's not, not something which, if you're having issues to sync to NTP, make sure you're running the latest code. To reconfigure the NTP, you can try to disable or re-enable NTP, but that might not help. So now this is an interesting one, multiple FEXes going offline at the same time. Now what we have seen is there could be some hardware problem with one FEX, and typically that could cause, multiple FEXes to go down at the same time, So especially if the way we actually see this problem is one of the FEX is in a hung state, it could be due to some hardware problem. It causes like other FEXes, to time out, right? So obviously it's a pretty serious issue. It's seen on our UCS fabric interconnects as well. So fabric interconnects, they're all, like the 5Ks, and the IO modules are like pretty much like the 2Ks. So from a hardware perspective, so we have seen these issues with that platform as well. There are some commands which I have documented, like show system internal FEX errors, show system internal FEX log, right? So you will see in the AIPC is your your IPC communication, right, between your FEX and 5K, and your internal IPC communication as well. So you will see like timeouts in your event history messages. So in the release note for this specific bug, we have also populated that. Obviously, as you can see over here, you can actually, we have documented, what kind of messages you will see. Satellite discovery protocol is your SDP. That's your protocol running between your 5K and the 2K, right? So you will see like timeout failures and MTS send fail and all that stuff, right? So this is basically CSE UC 92523 is on the UCS, and UG 95929 is actually on the 5K, right? So this is actually fixed in our latest releases as well. So you can actually go to the bug toolkit and you will know exactly which release has been fixed. Now this issue, we kind of went through several iterations with our engineering team. Typically, from a business impact standpoint, it's definitely not as impacting as you would think. The messages, as you can see, it's a level 5 syslog. However, it says heartbeat loss, right? So, you would think that, hey, I'm losing communication. What's going on? Is there any packet loss? Stuff like that, right? So definitely, this is something what we have seen is if you have a heartbeat loss for a specific interval, then we log this message. We have specifically seen this when polling the FEX interfaces. Obviously, it's related to SNMP polling. So we have actually worked with engineering and made sure we do fix this particular issue. Now this is to deal with particular OIDs. Now there is one issue which we are tracking still, because of which we could still see this problem. So definitely, if you see this message, I do encourage you guys to call in and let us know, right? Definitely something which we want to make sure, what kind of release you're running, do we have, a fix for this and things. So this is an issue about the DHCP functionality, the DHCP relay. Not something which, it's been out in the field for a long time, right? This particular feature. Now, what we have seen is with DHCP relay, it does not function correctly when the request coming in, the bootp flag, when the offer is coming in, with the bootp flag is set to broadcast, right? So again, a lot of times this is the default. So, on the 5K switch, the offer, so once you have the discover going to the DHCP server, then you have the offer coming in into the 5K as the relay. The offer might not be forwarded to the client through the 5K, right? When the server client, obviously, they are on different VLANs. So typically, you can get a trace. You can run ETH Analyzer as well, which is our inbuilt CPU-based profiling tool. So that, what we need to figure it out is if the broadcast flag in the bootp is set, is by default is set to broadcast, then obviously there could be an issue, and you want to make sure that you get past that problem. So it is actually seen in 602N12 release, right? So it's kind of like a more recent problem which we saw. We kind of jumped on it. We made sure we worked with engineering. We reproduced this problem in-house, and the fix is actually available in the 602N2.1 and the later releases. So N22 is kind of the latest on the 5K. So obviously something which we would like you guys to be aware of it. Now, coming back to DHCP, what we have seen is another issue where the bootp flag is unicast and not broadcast, and it could, again, this is all server dependent, right? So whatever flags are set not on the server, I meant client, whatever is set and how we initiate a discover to the server, and so typically if you have like a Wireshark, you would be able to see it straight away, right? So if the Nexus 6000 switch is configured to be the DHCP relay agent, if the switch receives the offer with a unicast bootp flag, right? So the packet is not relayed to the client correctly. It's a forwarding problem with DHCP, with your forwarding manager. So again, this could be seen in your fabric path setup as well. Again, we have seen it more in fabric path environments. For the problem, to be seen, the DHCP offer has to ingress on a CE or a fabric path port, right? And have the clients on the core ports. So again, it's kind of seen in a specific situation. So we are tracking it with CSC UJ24129. Obviously, we made sure that we kind of fix this issue as a priority. DHCP is something which is a widely deployed feature, especially the DHCP relay as well. So it is fixed in the 602N22 release. So Nexus 6000 10/40 gig interfaces. Now, this is an interesting one, coming from the 5K, or especially based on the PHY architecture. So this is something which we wanted to make you guys aware. On a Nexus 6001, right? So, it's more of a pizza box chassis. When a 10 gig interface is initially brought up, it takes a longer time for the interface to come up. So you can actually see this on the 6004 when the 40 gig interfaces are brought up. So this is something where right now it is kind of an expected behavior. However, we are actually prioritizing this with our development team and trying to see if there is a way in the hardware where we kind of respond faster to the link up, and we bring up the link. So typically, when the switch boots up, we start forwarding, the packets, right? But obviously, if the link come up, with a delay, obviously we might be black holing the traffic, right? So we want to make sure that we try to bring up the link as soon as possible, right? Now this was seen. This issue is kind of seen in the field when our 5.2 release came out. It was more to do with L3 for routing, especially. What we see is when the 5K is enabled for L3, we have the daughter card in it. We are actually routing through the SVI. If the switch has a static route pointing to the firewall, right, or some other router from the 5K, the adjacency for that route is not programmed correctly in hardware. So, it could lead to traffic black holing and stuff like that, right? So, definitely it's a very, important caveat, which we need to be aware of. Clear IP route for that particular route, or even an IPv6 route, is currently the workaround. We have made the fix available in 602N11 and 521N13 and later releases. So obviously this is something, if you guys are running L3 and you guys see severe connectivity problems, definitely let us know. We can get on the switch and accurately diagnose it to this, to this particular caveat. On the 5K, you can do like a show system internal forwarding route, right? And then obviously the next hop. So you can see the adjacency index over there, and then based on that you can note it down, and the next output which you want to execute is the default route, right? The show system internal forwarding for the default route, which is 0000/0, right? So obviously at that point, when you look at the adjacency index, if it is not showing correctly, then that that there is some issue going on, and it's probably this particular bug, right? So it's seen in the earlier releases of 5.2. So obviously as a best practice with L3, if you're make sure you kind of run a newer release if possible. Talking about L3, one more issue what we have seen, which is kind of similar to the routing, is if we reload the 6K, and this could be in the VPC, static routes, if you're having static routes on the 6K, there's a good possibility that the routing may get impacted with respect to the routes in hardware. You might not actually see them after the reload. So obviously leading to black holing of traffic. So this happens when the static routes are present on the switch with multiple VRFs, pointing to the null zero interface. So again, similar command, show system internal forwarding and since this is with multiple VRFs, you can have a VRF default IPv4 route, and then for which particular route you're actually executing that command for. So what you can see is after the reload, you don't even see that route. So it's kind of pretty kind of critical kind of problem. So definitely something to be aware of. This is actually fixed in 602 N22 release, which is the latest one. The defect tracking on this is CSE UI 74708. Okay, and obviously clear IP route is a workaround, just like your other issue on the 5K which we have seen. So you can do clear IP route star or for that particular VRF. Now config sync, obviously has become much more stable in our newer releases. Obviously we have had some challenges with that particular feature, with respect to, from a troubleshooting standpoint, as well as the kind of granularity we had with config sync. It has got a lot better in our newer releases. One issue still, we have seen in our recent releases is the CSE UI 79701 config sync verify failed. Lock is taken by another session. Again, based on the type of sequence of events you execute in config sync, obviously, it might actually have a database lock situation, right? Where you cannot do much. There is a way to clear the lock, and even that does not clear the lock. So it's kind of the lock is requested by the client, and there is no way to clear it. So one thing what we have done is you can actually remove the peering for the CFS, and then obviously you remove the IPv4 distribute command, which is needed for the config sync, and then try to clear out and it's kind of best effort. So this is the latest issue what we have seen. We have actually fixed it in 521N16 release out on which is out on CCO. So with FCOE again, some of these could be seen even before, few months back, but we thought we would go ahead and still let the team know, with respect to, hey, if folks are still not aware of it, this is not the latest, but again, we deemed it very critical in terms of just a lot of customers still kind of seeing it. They're running on the older code. So the issue here, what we are tracking is, when we are actually connecting, between the 5K and any upstream NPIV switch, via the SAN port channel, we could have an issue where the port channels are not coming up. Obviously, you have tried multiple workarounds. This is specifically seen when the 5K is running in NPV and the upstream switch is MDS or 7K, right? So the actual problem here is to deal with the MAC OUI, right? So OUI is your organizational unique identifier. Again, it is kind of a representation of that device. So especially, whenever new switches, we come out with newer switches, we have new OUIs associated with those. So we have to update our code base to make sure the new OUIs are added, right? So if there is an issue where that OUI is not there, then obviously, we'll see a problem like this. So the catch here is, if it's just the physical links and not a port channel, then they do come up, right? If it's a port channel, then obviously we still have a problem. So show floggy internal event history errors. is a good command on the NPIV switch. It will show floggy being rejected, waiting for the port mode. Also, the Nexus/MDS port can go into error disabled state. The show interfaces will show the interfaces as down, right? So error disabled, port reinitialization limit reached. So obviously, it's a caveat, right? It's something where we cannot get the switch up. So we are tracking it on the MDS and the 5K with these caveats. Definitely something where you want to make sure you go to the bug toolkit and you view them, make sure where it's fixed, and try to run a release with the fix for that. So another one which we are tracking here, we still kind of see these issues in and out with customers. So we are trying to make sure we reach out to the field for this. In the earlier code, feature fcoe-npv support for native fiber channel interfaces. Obviously, we did not have that stringent checks where even if you enable for fcoe-npv, we could still get the fiber channel ports up. But obviously in the newer releases, we have kind of strengthened some checks, and typically when you go from an older release to the newer release, you might see fiber channel interfaces going down, right? So we have to make sure you have feature fcoe and feature npv enabled. If you have fcoe-npv, then obviously this might not work, right? So basically, again, the intent here is fcoe-npv is only for multi-hop fcoe and implementations where you are going upstream between the switches. For any native FC, you need to have feature fcoe. So we'll just go over through one more of this before we move on to the best practices. So logout request with non-FCF MAC from NPV to NPIV 7K. Obviously, what happens is when the FCOE host port is acting as the NPV, right? And then you reload that, or if you shut it down and you bring it up, it takes about 100 to 200 seconds for the port to shut down, right? So obviously this happens because the 5K. So when the request comes in, the F disk is actually sent to the upstream 7K, right? So when actually the 5K, when it sends a FIP logout when the port is shut down, it sends it with the incorrect FCF MAC. So the upstream NPIV switch, it silently drops those FIP logout request packets, right? So the upstream switch dropping the packets is obviously expected because we are sending the logout with the incorrect MAC, right? So that is for the standard. So this issue, we are tracking with CSC UG 54169. We have actually fixed it in the latest 6.0 release. So this is the again the show flogging internal event history. It will actually see that you can see that over there, or show platform software FCOE manager event history errors. You can see basically the FCF MAC is different over here, right? Compared to, so the way you look at it is you can do show FCF, show FCOE, which will actually see the FCF MAC, right? Now let's move on to the 5K best practices. So polling question 3 is, how familiar are you guys with FCOE, right? A is, I do not know what FCOE means. B is, I know about FCOE but have not deployed it. C is, I'm interested in FCOE. D is, I have deployed FCOE, right? So I'll just wait for a few seconds. So, when we are actually preparing for an upgrade, now the recommended releases, we have a Cisco link for that where you can actually see, the recommended releases. After a few months, we make sure as the QA cycles progress and, whichever release has the caveats fixed and a more kind of a GD release, right? General deployment, a maintenance release, we kind of update it every few months. So currently the most recommended release is 513 N2 1C and 521 N14. Basically, so the ISSU guide, we used to have an older one, so we keep updating the newer one. The newer one is with 5.2. We have added all the, sections over there with respect to ISSU upgrades, then, disruptive upgrades, then rolling upgrades with FEXes. So again, definitely go through the upgrade downgrade guides, right? Sometimes the BIOS and the power sequencers, they get upgraded as well, in the newer releases. So typically, sometimes we have to power cycle the switch for these, power sequencers to get effect. And, typically, when you actually upgrade, we have made the NXOS, more interactive. That is, when you start the install, you will see those messages as well. We have also implemented reload power cycle as a command line, where in the newer releases you can actually, when you reload, effectively it will power cycle the switch. So definitely, we have provided some enhanced CLI with respect to how you upgrade. ISSU obviously not supported with L3. Review the compatibility matrix, right? Be familiar with the upgrade procedure. So coming to the best practices for L2, for VPC, if you are using a double-sided VPC, ensure, unique domain IDs are used, when you actually have a double-sided VPC between the 5K and the 7K, right? So you cannot have VPC domain 5 on both, right? So the VPC domain ID has to be unique. Otherwise, you will have problems building the port channel. So all VLANs on the VPC ports must be present on the peer link. Peer keep alive traffic should never be carried over the peer link, right? So sometimes when you have problems or outage and you're trying to bring up your network, if you have the VLAN, the VPC VLAN, the keep alive VLAN over the peer link, you will have problems bringing up the VLAN. If the keep alive doesn't come up, the peer link doesn't come up and stuff like that, right? So definitely we encourage you to follow all these best practices. Use LACP. LACP is our recommended protocol for forming port channels between Cisco devices. Use auto recovery feature in case of a dual switch failure. It makes sure that we do not get into a suspended state, and only one switch can come up and start forwarding traffic. If you have orphan port traffic going to VPC ports, then obviously enable for the VPC orphan port suspend feature, if one switch fails, right? So obviously all the traffic is going through the peer link, and obviously if you have one switch failure and you're trying to communicate with the devices on the other side, you don't want black holing of traffic. So that's why you have the orphan port suspend feature. Monitor for consistency checks, with show VPC consistency global. Now, one thing to update you guys is, whenever we are forming a VPC, we can't form a peer, we can't have a VPC between our older Gato switches and the newer, basically newer Carmel based 5500s. The reason being because of FTAG and L2MP based forwarding, we have, we cannot differentiate, and it's considered as a separate switch. So definitely when you're forming a VPC, use identical switches. So you can form a VPC between the 5010 and 5020, or a 5548 and a 96. But do not, if you're upgrading your switches, if you have existing 5010 or 20 and you try to connect a 5548 or a 96 to form a VPC, we can't do that. VPC L3 best practices. Obviously, you need to have L3 LAN base, very critical. Otherwise, you cannot get your L3 module up. For any extended features, you have to use LAN enterprise. Make sure you configure for peer gateway. on both the sides under the VPC domain. It makes sure that that particular switch is the gateway for packets which are destined to the HSRP virtual MAC, which is the active VMAC, which is on the other 5K, right? So we don't necessarily forward the packets over the peer link. The VPC secondary itself or the HSRP standby, also acquires the ability to forward packets. Configure delay restore to prevent black holing of traffic. So what happens is when the L3 module is coming up after the switch comes up, it takes some time for it to come up, and before that, if we bring up our SVIs, we would start forwarding traffic, right? So the intent here is to make sure you have delay restore. So we give some time for the L3 module to come up to make sure forwarding is not impacted initially. IPR synchronize is to perform bulk sync over CFS over Ethernet after the peer link comes up. Obviously, if you have a system where you have a lot of hosts, you have ARPs. Obviously, when the switch goes down, comes back up, or the peer link goes down, and once it comes up, the time needed to synchronize ARPs is typically higher. So we introduce this feature to make sure IPR synchronize is used. So configure HSRP priorities as usual. Both peers forward L3 traffic active, right? So make sure HSRP priorities, there is no nothing special about it. So fcoe best practices, again, we need to have a unique dedicated VLAN, right, which is tied to the fcoe VLAN for the vSAN, right? So you need to have a unique VLAN vSAN representation. What we make sure in the newer releases is the fcoe VLAN is pruned of the peer link, as such. So definitely, whenever technically you can still configure the same vSAN VLAN on both the 5K peers, but again, it will be a separate fabric, right? So you can have dual homed servers and dual homed storage, but same VLAN vSAN on both the sides. But make sure you do not have a fiber channel link between the two, trunking those vSANs. So obviously that is not recommended. Configure the host ports, going to servers as trunk ports. Obviously, you want to make sure you pass the native VLAN and the fcoe VLAN. So the VLAN discovery happens on the native VLAN, right? So, in the newer releases, there has been some change with respect to that. But, I would definitely encourage, to configure the host ports as trunk ports and them configured for edge trunk, right? So it's like a trunk fast. So switch port, spanning tree port type edge trunk kind of thing. So do not configure the VLANs as members of Ethernet links, right? So obviously, if you are configuring for just fcoe traffic, then don't configure Ethernet VLANs over there. Just standard best practice. This is something where between going from 5.0 to 5.1, we used to have a problem where the VFC interfaces don't come up. We got to make sure the service policies are intact, especially the default fcoe policies are intact, right? So in 5.1, 5.2 release and the newer releases, now these are more inbuilt. When you do show run IPQoS all, you will see that. But especially when you are on a slightly older release, if obviously fcoe, you need system QoS for fcoe to come up. So this is especially on the 5500 series switches, right? So service policy type QoS input fcoe default, right? Queuing input fcoe default, right? And your network QoS. So typically for implementations where we have jumbo MTU, we got to make sure we incorporate for the MTU in your network QoS, right? So there is a customized policy for that. fcoe limitations, obviously we don't support Gen 1 CNAs on the 5500s. They are supported on the older GATOs. fcoe on the 5K and 20 to 32, obviously we support Gen 2 CNAs only. Enabling FCOE on VLAN 1 is not supported, right? So that is still a limitation. Do not support more than one link in the port channel for direct connect FCOE, right? So again, there has been a lot of talks, with respect to having multiple link port channel, going to the end device and doing FCOE with only one VFC. From a SAN perspective, when a port is logged in, we associate that with a single VFC, right? So when you have multiple links in the port channel, that still doesn't change. So the binding, in the newer releases, you can bind with the physical, but not, the port channel, right? So obviously, you can bind a port channel where there's only one member link. So these are some of the references for data center switching, FCOE, right? So definitely feel free to go through this. And, I think we are at the top of the hour, so we definitely, let's go ahead with the Q&A. So we will open up for the discussion. So if you guys...
Yeah, thank you, Vinayak. Great presentation. I also want to thank everyone for participating in the event polling. And we're going to answer some of the questions our viewers have submitted today. So, by the way, if you can't stay with us for the Q&A, please be sure to click on the evaluation link provided in the chat to let us know how this session met your business needs and expectations. So we'll start with the Q&A. I have a question here, Vinayak. I got a license for DCNM with my Nexus 5K, but how can I download the software?
So DCNM license software download?
Yes, the question is...
Yeah, it is basically on the Cisco.com under the licensing. So under the DCNM, you should be able to, we can show it here, but the licensing part for the download, it is on CCO. Is the question where exactly on CCO?
Yes, I think that is.
It's just like any other product.
Okay, so it would probably be in the support areas?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next question, is it possible to subscribe to automatic bug reports for a product instead of manually searching for them?
Yeah, notifications, there is a way to actually, when you go to the bug toolkit, there is a place where you can actually subscribe to. There is a notification for that.
Okay. And with an error on 5K's SFP invalid, is the port actually down?
Yeah, I mean, so again, obviously, if you're trying to connect, obviously you won't be able to get the port up, right? So SFP invalid is something where, the port will be down.
Okay, another question along those lines. Does SFP invalid status mean that FET cannot be inserted in that port?
No. So again, SFP invalid is going to be with specific SFPs, right? So FETs, which is your fabric extender transceivers, they are used to connect between the 5K and the 2K. So what we recommend is if you're running FETs, it can only be used to connect to your FEXes. So again, I haven't seen personally with FETs that you get SFP invalid messages. Typically, we have a lot of vendors out in the market who sell Cisco SFPs. Sometimes these they could be counterfeit. I don't want to say that, but sometimes it's a vendor SFP problem. And if these are not Cisco SFPs, then we are not able to recognize that port. We have this magic cookie check which doesn't go through, and that's why we print that out, the SFP invalid message.
Okay, thank you. And a question, Nexus ports are auto-sensing. It means 110G automatically?
No, for 10 gig, yes. Yeah, it's auto. If you're configuring for 1 gig, you have to configure for speed 1000.
Okay, and other than connected, disabled, not connected, and SFP invalid, what other statuses are represented?
Yeah, error disable, there's not a whole lot of status. Sometimes if the interface goes down due to congestion, then on the older switches, we used to throw pause reasons. like pause, rate limit exceeded or something. And we do have like error detection for link recovery. So there's error disable detect cause. And so there are some reasons populated where, there could be a situation where, having the link go down due to certain reasons. So that, again, but it's very limited. We don't have a lot of reasons where we say, okay, most of the time, to be very candid, it ends up to be either a end device issue with the NIC or the driver. So, we want to make sure, the end device is checked.
Okay, and the next question here is, the SolarWinds issue, is it only specific to dual-homed N2Ks, or is it also possible with single-homed N2K?
It could be possible with single-homed or dual-homed.
Okay. And let's see. Is there a location where we can find the latest up-to-date information in regards to Nexus caveats and limitations, something like VDC compatibility for M with F2 line cards, or the incompatibilities depending on the parent switch for N2K?
So I think this question is more on the lines of Nexus 7000. So obviously we have a specific release note section for the Nexus 7K with FEXes, where we populate the compatibility for that. Now the Nexus 5000 and 6000s, they don't have M2 or F2 or any other cards, right? So it is not specific to this product.
Okay, and I want to encourage people to continue to submit their questions. So another question here, what version was the ADJ route fixed in?
The adjacency route is actually fixed in 5.2 I believe, but let me verify. If you give me a few seconds, I can verify that.
Okay. And we'll encourage you to continue submitting your questions while he verifies that. Okay, and there's another question.
521N13 and 602N11.
Can you say that again, Vinayak?
Yeah, so the adjacency hop, L3 adjacency hop issue, that is fixed in 521N13 and 602N11 releases. I think one of our QA panelists, QA managers, Carlo and Carlos, they have responded on that for that.
All right, thank you very much. When deploying a single home device connected to an N5K, for example, what is the best practice to deploy it? Using a separate VLAN for non-VPC peer-link VLANs?
Yeah, so that VLAN, we recommend only to be run between the two 5Ks. So it definitely like a separate VLAN, and that VLAN has to be carried over a separate link. So it could be through management port, or it could be through like a physical port on the 5K. It can be a 1 gig port or a 10 gig port.
Okay, I think this is along the same lines as the previous question I just asked, but I want to follow up with that. Should you use a dedicated link between two switches of the same domain to carry the single home device's VLANs, opposite to using the VPC peer link to transport these VLANs?
So again, there is a slight discrepancy between some of our other platforms as well as our platform, the 5K, 6K. So the bottom line here is we encourage to trunk all the VLANs over the peer link. If you have routed VLANs, we do not encourage to have a separate link for that, like the 7K. So any routed VLANs we have, they should be trunked over the peer link. We have been in discussion with our business unit to see if this behavior can be changed. The last, when we spoke to them, they said this cannot be changed, but we are kind of further discussing with them to make sure that there is compliancy between the different platforms with respect to the behavior. But as of now, if you have routed VLANs, then we encourage them to trunk over the peer link. if they are trunked separately via a different link and not the peer link, then you might see some duplicate packet issues with multicast, or you might see some forwarding problems or intermittent packet loss or something.
And another question here, if we are using ER or LR transceivers, can we support FCOE over those extended ranges, say like 7 miles in distance?
Yeah, I mean, that's a common question which has been asked, but unfortunately, it's right now, I don't know about the ETA for that, but still not possible. With ER, it's still not possible.
And a next question here, is it advisable to run NX OS 6.0 to N22 on a 5596 UP?
Sure.
Okay. And how much heavy loaded ESX do you recommend to route over a single FCOE link?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. How much heavy loaded ESX do you recommend to route over a single FCOE link?
I mean, that's a loaded question in the sense like, we do support 10 gig environments. So again, we should be able to go, anywhere close to, line rate. Obviously, during vMotions and stuff, it could boil down to, how simultaneous vMotions we are doing and stuff. But, I don't have the exact number for how many VMs you can run on the VSX. Carlo, do you know, like?
It's going to be limited.
Limited, right?
Resources on the host, not from a networking perspective.
Exactly. So, I mean, we don't have a ballpark figure for that. We definitely it is supported, and you can run as many as the throughput kind of provides.
Okay. And what is the Ethernet ether type for FIP?
It's 8906.
Okay. And this seems related. FOCE is encapsulated over Ethernet using which ether type?
89.
Yeah, 89. It's 8914. Yeah, FCOE is encapsulated in Ethernet. Yep.
Okay. And what speed is a requirement to run FCOE?
10 gig. And FCOE with 1 gig.
Okay. Is enabling NPIV feature disruptive or non-disruptive?
NPIV is non-disruptive, but NPV is disruptive. So if you enable for NPV, then you have to write erase and reload the switch. NPIV, there is no such restriction.
Okay. And does NPV require an NPIV core switch?
It does. So NPV just by itself is of no use.
And I think we're running toward the last question here. Is local switching supported on NPV switch?
No, the switching is actually, primarily done on the upstream NPIV.
Okay.
So, we don't do any local switching per se. All the floggy devices, they have to go to the upstream NPIV switch. So, for each and every transaction you do for the IOs and all that, so we have to go to the upstream switch.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. I think that has answered the majority of our questions. So that's going to conclude the Q&A portion of today's event. So Vinayak is also going to be hosting an Ask the Experts event. And if you have additional questions, you can ask those of Vinayak. He will be answering from November 12th through November 22nd. You can also watch the video or read the Q&A for this session 5 business days after the event at the link provided in your chat window. Now the trivia question, what do Cisco, Nexus, and BMW have in common? A, the BMW data center infrastructure was modernized using Nexus 2000, Nexus 5000, and Nexus 7000 from Cisco. B, Cisco provided support to BMW in the architecture approach in compiling the desired configuration and in the selection of the final optimum design. Or C, A and B. So I'll go ahead and take a moment to answer that question. We appreciate your feedback, and those who fill out the evaluation survey will be entered into a raffle for the chance to win a $50 Amazon gift card. So please fill out your evaluation when that pops up as you close the session, or you can click on the link in the chat window. We have a couple events coming up on the Cisco support community. The first one is an Expert Series webcast in Spanish, and that's going to take place on Tuesday, November 26th. And the topic is routing and switching, iOS architecture, introduction, and operation. So you can register for that live webcast on the Cisco support community. You can also click on the link in our chat window. And in December, there's an Expert Series webcast in Portuguese, Cloud Collaboration and Hosted Collaboration Solution, HCS. And that's going to take place on Wednesday, December 4th. We have a next Expert Series webcast coming up in English, and that's on PowerView Network Control System, and that's going to take place on Tuesday, December 10th. We also have an Expert Series webcast coming up in Russian, and that's on Fabric Path Technology Overview, and that'll take place on Tuesday, December 17th. We have a couple Ask the Expert events currently in English. The first one is on the topic of IPv6 routing protocols, and that's going to be hosted by one of our Cisco designated VIPs, Peter Paluch. And that ends on November 15th. We also have another one coming up, topic integrating Cisco ISE 1.2 for BYOD, and that's going to end on November 15th. Those are currently running on the Cisco support community. We have some upcoming events in English as well. Starts November 18th, and that's a Ask the Expert event on 3GPP mobility. And the other event starting on November 18th, Carrier Routing System CRS Hardware Architecture. We have a few more events coming up in December, Ask the Expert events. First one, understanding, configuring, and troubleshooting a converged network using the Cisco Catalyst 3850 series switch. And that's going to start on December 2nd. And we have another one on configuring and troubleshooting 802.1x, and that is going to start on December 2nd. We have a wonderful community tech talk series that we post videos monthly on a topic. And the current one is Virtual PortChannel, VPC, Operation and Design Best Practices. And that you can view on the Cisco support community and also on our Cisco support community YouTube channel. We have a Google Hangout coming up on enabling your network for IPv6, and that's going to take place Thursday, December 5th. And you can RSVP at the following link in your chat window. And we have a meetup for those of you who are located in the Silicon Valley. We have a meetup tomorrow, and that's going to take place Wednesday, November 13th, and that's in Santa Clara at our Cisco campus. And it will take place from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., and we'll have our Cisco support community services manager, Vidya Srinivasan, and Drew Iacone from sales, talking about simplifying your data center with Cisco Unified Computing System, and also they'll be going over some of the events that are happening at the Cisco support community, and also our whole entire website and some of the offerings we have on the Cisco support community. So you'll want to make sure to RSVP at the link provided in your chat window. We also invite you to actively collaborate in the Cisco support community and social media channels. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google+. You can download our mobility apps at iTunes and also on the Google Play Store. And we are on LinkedIn, and you can also subscribe to our newsletter that goes out monthly. We have communities in other languages as well. If you speak Spanish, Portuguese, Japanese, or Russian, you're invited to ask your questions and collaborate in your language. We are also going to be featuring a Chinese Cisco support community coming up, so look for that. And you can join the Cisco support community. It's free for anyone with the Cisco.com registration. And you can find documents, blogs, Ask the Expert events, videos, mobile discussions, a wealth of information on the community. So we invite you to join and visit our community. Also on the community, you can rate events. Now your ratings can be seen on documents, videos, and blogs, and you can give points to the authors. So you want to look for that. I mentioned a little earlier the Cisco Technical Support mobile app, which you can download on iTunes, and you can also download on the Google Play Store. And here's the answer to the trivia question. It was C, A, and B. So what do Cisco, Nexus, and BMW have in common? The BMW data center infrastructure was modernized using Nexus 2000, Nexus 5000, and Nexus 7000 from Cisco. Also, Cisco provided support to BMW in the architectural approach, in compiling the desired configuration, and in the selection of the final optimum design. It looks like the majority of you got that answer correct. So I want to thank you. I want to thank Vinayak, and I want to thank Carlos and Carlo for their time today and their expertise. I want to thank you all for attending, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone.